In this video we are going to talk about the streaming feature of Zero Proxy. I'm sure you guys have already seen the video where I've explained the download, and in the download I have if I can remember, in the video I've explained the use of this start block and this and block thing. We can partially download the file depending on the block number. Okay, so leveraging this start and end block feature in this Zero Proxy, we are kind of implementing a streaming method where, let's say, if you have a video in your allocation, then you can simply stream that video, but downloading the chunks, the video in, like, let's say my video has 100 blocks, so I download 1 to 10 first, then 10 to 20, 20 to 30, and serve them as a partial content to the browser or to the client, and the client can simply play that video, stream that video, which thing is already implemented on the on our Explorer side, will be updated soon on the Explorer, I guess. So it's kind of similar to download. In download we are going to download the whole file at once by not giving any block number. We are going to say, hey, download me the whole file, and the same. But in the stream we have just did a simple tweak. We have all the parameters like allocation, client, JSON, remote path, which we anyway have in the download to know the path. The one major new parameter we get is range. So this is, I guess, the most important, the basic difference between the normal download and stream is the range. Now when we download a file, we don't get this range thing, we simply get all the details of the file. But in this streaming thing we get this range, and the range means the browser or the client, whoever, the HTML video player, or we can say the browser, whoever the client is hitting the API, it gives us a range that, hey, I want content from this byte to this byte, like 0 to 1 lakh or 0 to 2 lakh. Let's say there are 10 lakh bytes in my video, so it gives me number 0 to 1 lakh, and then I get the input range. And by the way, this input range is usually, all the other procedure are standard. I'm kind of checking for the odd ticket and checking if the download is using getting odd ticket, and I'm getting the allocation from the SDK, then the metadata of the file. By the way, metadata is fetched to check the actual size, like if the range, like the browser says give me 1 to 1 lakh and the video is already shorter than 50,000 bytes, then there is no point of range. We are gonna give the whole video at once if it's too small. So the metadata is fetched for that size mainly, and then the file name, the actual file name, etc. So these are the formalities, kind of prerequisite before fetching the files: allocation object, metadata, file name, lookup hash in case of odd ticket, etc. Now this is where the actual calculation gets starts. In this calculation chunk we are giving it the allocation object, the number of blocks, the metadata size, and the input range. Now it's gonna get a bit mathematical, and thanks to Sculptex, our I would say a developer, a partner in ZeroChain, he did all this calculation in PHP, and I converted it to Golang. So in simple terms, what we are calculating is, depending on the input range, we are trying to calculate a fit start and end block number. Okay, I mean, the ultimate use of this cal chunk method is to give us the start block int, end block int, chunk start, chunk end. Okay, so these are the actual 4 things with this method. Calculation chunk is gonna give us that, hey, okay, given on this range, let's say whatever the range is, and given the size of a 64 KB block, 6553, this is 64 KB, we are doing some mathematical calculation, so much mathematical, and we are trying to calculate that what will be the ideal number of blocks for this given range. Hey, let's say 0 to 1 lakh, so what will be the input range, block range, okay, for that thing. Let's say it says 1 lakh to 2 lakh, then what should be the block range? It says 2 lakhs to 3 lakhs, then what should be the block range using this size parameter and the allocation object, etc. So once we have this start block and end block, we use the start block and end block to define the file's name as well. Okay, because since we are going to download the file in chunks, let's say if there is a file video.mp4, so obviously we are kind of gonna break it in 10 or 12 or whatever number of pieces, like 10 parts, video .mp4 1, video.mp4 2, video.mp4 3 till 10. So we are using the start block and end block in the name of the file as well to identify that this file belongs to this block, and if in case the browser wants the same file again, we don't have to download it again, it will be get served from the cache directly. So this is the mechanism where we are going to check that if this file, the file with these blocks and this file name already, we have created a file, a unique file path, and if we check whether this file already exists, because we don't clear our cache like for an hour or 30 minutes maybe after download. So for the next 30 minutes the file is going to be already there in the zero proxy cache. So if the file is already there, it will be simply served with these headers. By the way, in streaming I have learned that this range calculation and the headers are the most important part. I suggest the other stuff is really basic, because in the range the client is actually telling you that how much bytes I want, and when you are sending these headers, content length, content type, content range, you are telling him that how much content we have sent to you, so that depending on these content range and content length, it will request again for the rest of the content. I mean, it's like he says, give me 1 lakh, and you say no, I'm only going to give you 1 to 60,000 now. So in the next request it will ask from 60,000 to 2 lakh again, then you say no, I'm going to give you only 120 now. Then it will ask again from one. So it should know, I mean, there is a proper way of communication between the client and the server, that hey, give me this much, no, I'm going to give you this much. Okay, then the next request will depend on the response of the first request. The browser will know that okay, I've only got this much, now I still have this much remaining. Okay, so that's how the content is actually shared between the client and browser. I mean, anyone who knows streaming will understand. I am technically new to this. This is the first time I've implemented streaming, so if there is any mistake, you guys find out that this should have been done better. We are open for suggestions. But yeah, so what happening was at the path. So if the path is not there, let's say the file is not there, then we simply are going to use the download or ticket or download file by block. If it's auth ticket, we are going to use this method. You see, downloading auth ticket. Otherwise, block, we are gonna give the path, the start block, end block, and etc., and it will download that particular piece of file, you know, from let's say 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 50 in that file name, this file path. And then we are gonna return this file path from here with all the contents and etc., you know, the chunk start number, length, type, range, this content, all this calculation is done using the standard streaming protocols, that what should be the format of the byte, etc. So if anyone find anything which can be improved, let me know. So from this we simply download the file and we return the file path. Okay, we haven't streamed the file, but we have written the file path. Now the actual magic happens somewhere in the core, in the common, in the handler, I guess. This is our JSON request handler, this is our stream response. From there it comes here, this point, this is actually the calling of that part handler, so it comes here. So in the data it comes to here, we convert it to file path, we open the file, you know, os.open file path content, and then we use write header 206 and io.copy write.content. This is typical Golang stuff, but these things help us, I mean, from this point of this file lines help us to open that particular path, read the data, and stream it on the writer, response writer. So when we do that, all the data will be kind of streamed into the response writer in the Golang context. So typical Golang stuff. So the reason we are doing this separate, because we have handlers separately, you know, file response handler, this we use for download. In download we serve file, in stream we are kind of copy file, in JSON response we give JSON response, you know, decode and etc., JSON's decoding, etc. So these are our handlers, and these are our major operation things where we calculate and, you know, do everything. We just return the file path from here, and the streaming is done from somewhere else. But this is the major part where we do calculation. I suggest this is the major chunk, the cal chunk, calculation of chunk we are doing. So this is major calculation, and after this is simple downloading of block and etc. So it all depends, again I have already said, depends on the range, whatever range we get. Depending on the range we calculate these 4 important parameters, and depending on these 4 important parameters we download that particular block, and then we send the content length, content type, content range to the browser or the client. So similarly anybody can use the same technique, or if they have a better option, please let us know as well. That's it about the streaming. And if you want to, I mean, how to use from the client side, it's pretty simple. Just use a typical HTML, I would say there is a video tag just like this, and it uses source. And I mean, I'm not a front-end guy, but I know this much, that so it uses an API. So simply give us the API of like our proxy 0proxy.com with the stream and the all the parameters, you know, allocation, etc, etc, all the parameters, and the video player will do its job. It will get the content from that particular API and it will start streaming. So that's all handled by the video player. And again, if it doesn't get the complete content, it will again send a request. You know, I've seen that when I was playing video, it continuously do that request with incremental number of range. You know, that's what I explained. Like initially they will ask you for some range, then they get some data, then again they get a request with some greater range, then again they get some data, then again the third request with another greater range. So it kind of goes on and on. Hey, give me more. Okay, take more. Then give me more and take more, something like that. That's it, guys. For any doubt, you can still reach out to me, and we will try to cover more if I have missed something. Thank you.